2 years ago when Nikon released the first Z6 and Z7, it was actually quite a great camera. It got a built-in in-body stabilization, it got really good autofocusing, it got face detection, autofocusing, proved to be pretty good. And then the body is really good actually. 2 years later, we've got this, which got only a Mark II, actually only a Mark II. Well, it's not Mark II, I mean, Nikon called this Z6II, it's not Mark II, right? And it's actually, don't get me wrong, it is a brilliant camera, and compared to other brands, some aspects is actually better. But then, it's good. I can't help to feel like it's not good enough. Why is that? It's good but not good enough, what I'm talking about. But let's focus on what is good and what is improved first. Now let's start with what it is really good at, which is 12 FPS burst rate. Actually, this can go to 14 FPS, but even the previous version, Z6 can already do 12 FPS. When 12 FPS is already better than all the Sony camera. Look at that. Whoa! I mean, Sony can do it faster with an electronic shutter, but if we are talking about mechanical shutter, it's faster than Sony, and it is as fast as the Canon R6, the overheating mirrors. R6, they both can do 12 FPS. But if you want a little bit more, if I don't use tracking, set it to a single point AF, and then set the RAW to 12-bit RAW. And now I have two more, 14 FPS. It's faster than anything else. It's faster than Sony, Canon, Panasonic. Don't have much subject to test it, but yeah, 14 FPS. And especially the buffer is really good. If you shoot JPEG, the buffer up to 200 frames. If you shoot RAW, it's 100 something frame. I forgot now, sorry about that. Now talking about autofocusing, it has been great. Even the previous Z6 and Z7, well, initially it got some complaints, but Nikon improved them a lot since using firmware updates. But now it's even better because Nikon said that they now have dual processor. It doesn't have a new processor, but it has dual processor. So AF performance should be improved. Most obvious improvement is low light AF. Previously with Z6, with a f2 lens, it can focus down to -2 EV, but now down to -4.5 EV. Now I don't have a light meter, so this is just calculated EV value. As you can see, this is the old Z6. In this situation, it can still focus, but when I make it even darker, now it can't focus at all. In the same situation though, the Z6II, even though it takes quite a long time to acquire focus, but it can focus in this situation. Now this is really dark. Usually you won't try to focus in this kind of darkness. But it still shows you that the Z6II can focus better than the Z6 even in a less extreme situation. When I was shooting street photography on the street, it is really simply the AF it just worked perfectly. These days doing street photography, I would just use AFC and AF tracking because it is so good, even though I'm shooting something that doesn't move. Now the previous Z6 has this phase AF, IAF, and of course this Z6II, of course it has it as well. But there's something new, because before that, same as other brands as well, the AF area and the IAF or phase priority AF, whatever they call it, they are in separate menu where you turn on or off phase IF, AF, IF, AF. But then now this is a really good idea to put them together. For example, this is auto area AF, which is the usual that it decided what to focus on based on whatever the AI, the machine think. The auto area phase priority is at the same menu as well. So yeah, it's easier to switch between them. It actually makes sense. I love that. And this is new. Now the YAF, wide area AF, this is not new. This is this square. It only focuses on things that within this box. And then there is a new wide area AF people. So it will only focus on people inside this box. If there's nobody in here, it just become a normal wide area AF. Yeah, and this is useful, for example, if you're doing wedding photography, that you only want it to focus on the subject rather than all the guests at the behind. Of course, the animal AF. So I think I should still talk about the body design, because not everyone has touched Nikon Z camera body before. But then I have to say they are exactly the same as the Z6 and Z7. I mean, as I mentioned when I first have the Z6 and Z7, I like the grip. In hands, it's probably the most comfortable, the best handling mirrors out there. But then for now, because other brands have released bigger camera, so now when I use this, I feel like the grip is slightly not big enough. But then the size, I mean, not the size, the shape is very good. Maybe if Nikon is making the next mirrors, maybe Z8, I don't know, maybe Z8 or Z9, which is a better one, maybe they will have a bigger size, bigger grip with the same shape, then it will be perfect. On-off button is still very Nikon on-off button, which I like. Record button, ISO, and exposure compensation. You got two customized button here, which is useful as well. And it's starting to ring, but it doesn't matter because this is weather seal and really good Nikon weather seal, as they claim it's the same as their DSLR, just like the D850. As the first version, of course, people complain about there's only one SD card slot, one card slot. Now it got two, one SD card and one XQD or CF Express. It got good and bad. I kind of don't really like a mix of different card formats in one camera. I think it's quite annoying to distribute different kind of which cards you like. I mean, I find it annoying. But then, of course, that means you can still use some of your older SD card in this camera. Now the back doesn't have too many buttons. Maybe that's one thing that people don't like the original Z6 and Z7. The screen kind of worth talk about is that as usual, when you put your eye to it, the LCD screen turns off. But now they have added that when you flip out the screen, that means you're using it, and now the sensor is off. And the ports, you have HDMI mini. It's not a full-size HDMI, but still better than HDMI micro. USB-C, and now you can you can use USB-C power to power this camera. So when you got good enough, it's powerful enough, then it will only use USB-C and not using the power from your battery. So now I'm just shooting video with the Z6II with the 14 to 30 millimeters f4 lens, which is great, and it's kind of small as well. And you can see, the in-body stabilization should be working pretty well as usual. And because the lens doesn't have VR, which is vibration reduction, which is IS in other camera, it's great, but not great enough, because this still shoots 8-bit video. Just like Sony, still, most of their cameras still only shoot 8-bit, but only the A7S III, the first one that shoots 10-bit internally. Now this can shoot 10-bit, but externally, you have to use an external recorder to get 10-bit and to get HLG and analog, this is something that I don't understand, is that why they have to restrict, because most cameras these days can do HLG, even an RX100 RX700 has long been having log file, although it's a little bit silly, 8-bit, HLG, and log file, but they have it. The Panasonic S5 I have been using, this is great. This is similar size, similar price. I think it's the same price as well. But this can do 10-bit internally with HLG, Vlog, whatever you want. The Canon RX same as well. And one thing good though, this will get a firmware update later, then you will have 4K 60p, but with an APS-C size crop, the DX size of the sensor, which is similar to this as well. Now without a doubt, the Nikon Z6II is a great camera, especially if you compare to other comparable camera, for example like the Canon R6, the Sony A7 Mark III, or this Panasonic S5 I'm using right now. The Nikon Z6II is actually doing something better. For example, the burst rate is much better. But then I think a lot of people share the same feeling with me, is that we are still disappointing on Nikon. I think the disappointment is not on the camera itself. The Z6II, Z7II, they are great. They are better in some way than other cameras. But then the disappointment is that after 2 years since the original Z6 and Z7, we are still only getting the Mark II. The thing is, after 2 years, we want a better camera. We want a better Nikon Z from Nikon. The comparable camera to Canon R5 or the Panasonic S1. So I'm still looking forward to that, and I'm sure Nikon is working on that. It will come. But then for now, the Z6II and Z7II, if it is on your budget range, they are great camera to get.